I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I'm really excited about my next guest. Daniel Levin is here, and it has been quite a while. We met last year when I was on my first little journey with my Facebook Lives, and he came on to talk about his book, The Mosaic, and it was just a great conversation. We actually had two parts because the internet was acting up, so we had to record twice, but it was a great conversation. So I'm really excited to have him here today because in lieu of this pandemic, he is somebody that is a very um, just thoughtful person that has so many creative and unique ideas that it's great to have a conversation with him in the landscape that we're in with this pandemic. So I'm excited to dive into a conversation with them. But at this time, before we get started, I want to give him the mic, so to speak, so he can introduce himself before we get into the interview.
Hey, the only really thing that's important to say is it's so nice to see you again. I've missed you and it's been too long.
Yeah.
So I am, I've lived 1,000 different lifetimes in this lifetime. To try and pinpoint any one of them at any point in time is almost ludicrous. But what I can say is this, that I've had the opportunity to be with the richest people in the world, not in their audiences, but at their dinner tables. I've been able to meet their parents and play on the floor with their kids. They've asked me occasionally for my counsel, and they've been kind enough often to give me their counsel. And at the same time, Lachelle, I've been lucky enough, kind enough, generous enough to be able to be on street corners with some of the poorest of the poor. And I've had the same experience, although their dinner tables were different, although the meals we ate looked different. The feeling that we had was the same. Those people were kind enough to introduce me to their friends or their family if they showed up. We would sit together and they were able to give me counsel and occasionally ask my counsel, and I really listened to all of it. And one of the things that I heard, not so much in the words that they said, but in the feeling that I got, no matter how rich someone was or how poor, no matter what skin color they had, no matter what religion they practiced, no matter what border they lived behind, no matter what their political affiliation, no matter who they worshipped or didn't worship, I saw the same three things in everybody. People wanted to be loved and accepted. People wanted to be listened to and heard. People wanted to be acknowledged and validated. And the moment that I realized I could do all those things, I didn't need a college degree, I didn't need to join some church or some synagogue, I didn't need to follow some religious ordination, even though I have some of those things, I didn't need them. All I needed was a kind enough heart to be able to go up to somebody and say, I really care about you, I would like to hear what it is you believe. And in doing that simple thing, worlds have opened up for me. I now have a show called, it started out being called 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. A week and a half into it, I had already had over 100 people who had signed up. So I can no longer call it 50 Conversations with Strangers. So I started calling it Conversations with Strangers. Now it's really come down to just conversations that I have in this room. And the Zoom room is the same. Without people in it, it's just an empty room. But as soon as people come in, they're strangers. As soon as they come in and they have the opportunity to be who they are, be loved and accepted for who they are, be listened to and heard, be acknowledged and validated for what it is they're saying, I've watched a really interesting thing happen. Suddenly who they aren't falls off, and all that's left is who they are. And sometimes people see themselves for the first time in that room. They haven't even seen themselves because they've been so guarded and protected. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens so much of the time that I almost anticipate it and can't wait for it. And I highlight and I call out to people, did you just notice a shift that just happened there? And they said, yeah. It's that visible when the armor drops and we become ourselves. And it doesn't take a lot to do that.
Mhm.
And in this world that we're living in, where everybody's belief systems separate them from everybody else, I'm 65. No one's ever asked me to believe what they believe. When they feel loved and accepted, listened to and heard and acknowledged and validated, they understand that I've got my own crazy beliefs, just like I understand they have theirs.
Mhm.
And they don't need me to believe like they believe because they know I accept them and validate them and honor them for having what the beliefs they have. I have no agenda for how they should live their life. That's their right to choose. But I do want to say that some of my closest friends, I would never believe some of the things they believe. I mean, they're like crazy in some of the beliefs they have. But I would still take a bullet for them because of how much I love them.
Mhm.
So I think we need to get past this place where our beliefs are what separate us
Right.
and let the love of who we are be the thing that binds us together.
Mhm. That's beautiful. Now, I love the part of how you said what they are not falls off. So, this is a great question to even ponder because so many people are reinventing themselves or dealing with loss of identity and things like that. So, how do you make that space possible for what you are not to fall off? Would you say?
I don't think I do anything is the really mysterious answer. I think by just holding this, by loving somebody, when you love somebody and accept them, when they don't need to be somebody, when I have no agenda, like the only two conversations in the hundreds of conversations that I've had that were good conversations but didn't belong in my room
Mhm.
were the two conversations I came in with an agenda. And one was a born again Christian who was trying to convert me, and I stood up because I love doing these conversion talks that I've had over the course of the years
Mhm.
because I know a lot about Scripture and I talk to people about it. But I felt so dirty afterwards because she has every right to believe what she believes. I didn't want to change her belief systems. And so when we come into a room without an agenda and just love another person, when we really listen to what they're saying rather than thinking about what we're going to say back in those agenda conversations, I was always thinking, okay, she said this is what I'm going to say.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean I haven't listened to a thing she said because I'm already in the back of my mind saying, oh, this is a good question. This is what I'm going to ask. This is what I think. This is how I'm going to argue that. That's how I'm going to fail. And I was taught in seminary to walk into a beautifully perfect room where people would walk in and say, this is the most beautiful room I've ever seen. My Rebbe taught me how to walk into that room and find 10 things that were wrong with it in 30 seconds. And I thought, what a big gift he gave me then. Now I wish he could get out of my head. Because in businesses, it's great to be able to walk in and have that acuity to be able to see what's going on in a business and what isn't quite working. But in relationships, it sure doesn't do much good. To be able to see the things that are wrong with people instead of the things that are right with people, we need to all forget what's wrong with each other and just see what's right with each other and see what happens when we start to build on what we love about another person rather than what separates us from another person. So I think it's really just what happens when people don't feel they have to protect themselves because they feel no one's going to attack them. There's no need to carry their armor. And I would say in these times where people are redefining themselves, I would say celebrate with every sense, with every cell that you have in your being. Because if who you were being doesn't remain through a pandemic, it isn't who you are. Who you are will remain through everything. And so find out who you are, because that won't change as the wind blows left or right. That won't change if you're isolated or if you're in a large square with people. That won't change by the fact that an illness takes somebody from you or that you yourself get ill. Who you are doesn't change, it remains the same. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, and that is so good because we're finding out right now what a lot of people are made of. What are their beliefs and values, a lot of people have reflected. And I love the fact how you mentioned that you can love someone in spite of their beliefs. So, walk us through that process because many people feel that they can only love like-minded people. We have the
Yeah.
same values. We believe the same things. We're voting for the same president or whatever. So for you to have a love that transcends those things, how does one accomplish that?
When my love doesn't have any strings attached to it, I don't need you to be who I want you to be in order to love you. I love you because I love you. And I want to get to know you. When I look at the mosaic and what a mosaic is, the beauty of a mosaic is every single piece is different. Its colors are different. Its shape is different. Some are broken, some are whole, some are bigger, some are smaller. But they don't fight each other because they're different. Each piece maintains its integrity, but in coming together in the totality of all the pieces, it creates an artistry that is magnificent. The moment I start to believe that I have the right to tell you what to believe is the moment I lose my ability to love you. Think of it in relationships that we have with lovers. Think of it with our children. Think of it with our boss and our employees. When we hold the space for someone to be completely, uniquely, brilliantly, differently who they are, and we love them because of who they are, not because we need to teach ourselves to love them. When I met my wife at the time that I was in the worst possible scenario. My life had completely crumbled. I was a lot of dollars in debt. I was not feeling healthy. And she came in my life, this beautiful woman, 21 years younger than I. And it wasn't the classic California old guy with a lot of money, finds a young girl. I didn't have anything to offer her. And I said to her, "Why do you love me?"
Mhm.
And she said, "I've never been asked why I love somebody before. I love you because I love you. There's no reason to love you. I just love you because my heart doesn't know how to do anything but love you." When we love in that way, who cares what you believe? Who cares who you vote for president? We will never we will never bring together this country, this nation, this world if we allow our beliefs to separate us
Mhm.
rather than our love to unite us.
That's good. Yeah, that's real deep. And hey, that's I'm on that plane. That's good. So for many people, you've got your book, The Mosaic. I mean, this is just a great segue to kind of help people during this time because a lot of people are thinking, well, I want to reflect, I want to do things different. Um, just walk us through the takeaway for the book, The Mosaic, and how we can even just begin to apply just something um, from, your thinking with this book right now, because it is a time where people can be remolded, so to speak, in terms of
Yeah.
unlearning a lot of the stuff that just has not served us.
Yeah. So the whole story of the book is about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day, and when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven, but he's a young boy. He doesn't know what a place called heaven looks like.
Hmm.
So he sets out on the road to find people who could tell him what heaven is and show him where heaven is. But the people he meets are not the clergy and the ministers and the rabbis and the shamans and the men and women and the Aborigines elders. They're the common ordinary people. They're the homeless guy and the street worker and the garbage man and the waitress. And he wonders, what in the world am I meeting these people for? How are they going to show me heaven? But he says, I don't have anything else to do. I'm here with them. I might as well sit and listen to them tell me their stories. And as he listens to each person tell their story to him, what he realizes is they're not at all what he thought they were. They're not at all the first impression that he got. And he suddenly sees in every single person that he talks to a different person emerging from the person he initially saw, not because the person changed, but because his preconceived notions of him changed. And so he starts to wonder, what do I see in the world that is really as the world is? Or do I see everything in the world the way I see it? Which is a preconceived notion that's probably just as wrong about the world as what I see right now in these people. What would happen if I got myself out of the way and just tried to see the world the way it is? What would happen if I was open to other perspectives of how other people see the world? Because just because I see the world this way doesn't mean it's right. It's just the way I see the world. What would happen if I started to embrace other opinions, other perspectives, other ways of seeing things? What I found through that process is I believe everything in the world is possible. I believe there's nothing impossible. The only reason I don't know how to do something that I think is impossible now is I just don't see a way to make it possible. And as long as I continue to hang out with the people that see the world the same way I see the world, I'll never see a way to see the world differently. But when I go with people of unlike mind, and I sit with them and I ask them how do they see things and what do they see, when they look at exactly the same thing I'm looking at and show me a different world that they see than the one that I've ever seen, well, guess what? They might just show me something that allows me to put the pieces together to see what I thought was impossible now becoming possible. We had a conversation, if you don't mind me sharing it, in the green room before I came in. A short, sweet, beautiful conversation about the fact that some people think you're crazy because of the way you see the world. Well, they're in suffering and you're in joy. Wouldn't it be not a bad idea to wonder why someone who's in joy at this moment is in joy rather than continue to see the world that you see that is full of suffering? What would happen if we were free enough in our belief systems, if we were strong enough in who we were as human beings, to allow other people to share with us what they really believe, and we just listen to them? We don't have to believe what they believe, but we might want to. We might find something that uproots the very beliefs that we thought were foundational for us. And if it does, so be it. Let it be uprooted. It's time for it to be uprooted. It's causing us decay. Let something fresh and new and beautiful come into your life. When I look at this pandemic, I see something that's amazing. I see that an invisible virus has halted the world. It's caused the world to not go outside anymore. The question is, have we gone inside? Have we taken the time to go in and get to know ourselves? When you can't go outside, go within. That's what I say. And it also gave me the thought that there's a possibility that an invisible virus called the virus of love could also spread contagiously through the world if we would start to believe in it. What would happen if the invisible virus of love contagiously spread around this planet? Might be interesting to look at.
Be interesting. That is so true. Now, so you have mentioned also about holding the space for someone, and this is very key when it comes to, having these conversations that you take part in. So, for somebody who is interested in playing that particular role for an individual, what is the homework that you had to do for yourself in order to be in that position to hold the space for somebody else? Does that question make sense?
Beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. I'm trying to think if there was any homework. It felt like a grace that just happened, but I
Mm-hmm.
think when I retrofit it back,
Mm-hmm.
um, having agendaless conversations
Mm-hmm.
is super important. When I have an agenda with you, I don't allow you to be you because I'm trying to impose my agenda on you.
Mm-hmm.
When I want you to do something, I don't allow you to be you.
Mm-hmm.
When I have the ability to just look, the saying is so trite almost. I hate even saying it, but everybody says it. So I'll say what they say. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But do we spend twice the amount of time listening that we spend talking? Most likely not.
No.
And so all we have to do to gain some of the tools is look in the mirror.
Mhm.
Let our face remind us of what our mission is in this world.
Mhm.
And I wondered often because I talk so much. Like, look how much I've talked in this conversation we're having, right? And, and I thought,
This is what
why?
you came for, though. You know, I
Right.
didn't have an agenda. Right.
But I love that. But I thought, like, God, why in the world would you choose me to do this? I mean, couldn't you find someone who doesn't talk so doggone much to give a message of listening?
We're
And
practicing while
and
you're talking. See?
that's right. And so, and what I heard was something really interesting, and I want people to get this. The voice that I heard back when I really paused and listened was listening with the ears is such a small part of what listening really is. What it said to me is, Danny, when you speak to people, what your words do is it occupies the mind. If you're a good enough conversationalist, people will get engaged in your conversation, and their mind will be engaged in the conversation that you're having. They'll think about it. They'll listen to it. They'll hear it. The mind is the thing that is the most scared of change. The mind is the thing that's most scared and interrupts real transformation. So while you're speaking to people, just make sure you're listening to their heart and their soul. And make sure your heart and your soul is transmuting energy to them as well. Because now the mind is occupied, it won't get scared and interfere with that transmission. It'll allow that transmission to touch people. So it isn't your words that are going to change anybody or do anything, because who wants to change anybody? But it's a vibration that people will feel that they'll say, gosh, I want to do that too. I want to be able to do that. And when they want to be able to do that, they'll feel something through what you say. They'll feel it in the resonance of your voice. They'll feel it in the quality of the way you express yourself. But most of all, they'll feel it in how loved they feel just listening to you. That isn't from your words. That's from your heart and from your soul. So make sure you stay open to listen to a person's heart and soul when you speak to them, and give them what they, not only what they want, but give them what they need at that dimension as well.
That's just beautiful. So I love that whole concept about the um engaging the mind. That is just, how did you come to that? Because that just is so profound, but it's like a vibration that you feel when you said that.
Yeah. So in every one of your questions, it's beautiful because you're asking me, how did I do that? Okay. And I love that. All right. And the answer that I always am giving you is I didn't do that. But
Mm,
listening isn't only listening to other people, it's listening to your soul and your voice within your own self.
mhm.
And the more I've started to quiet my mind, I've had the beautiful luxury of having been able to meditate for the last 45 years every day, all of those 45 years. Sometimes it was 18 hours a day, sometimes it was 18 seconds a day. The time doesn't matter. What matters is the practice is continued. And in that practice, I've learned to just be quiet and hear what's being said. Sometimes I sit down and I get what's being said and I get up and I go. I don't need to hear anymore. Or I don't know that I can take hearing anymore. Maybe there's more to come, but there's always tomorrow or the evening, right?
Right.
But we have to learn how to listen to what the voice within us is saying. And when we listen to the voice, these aren't things that I've thought up. I'm not smart enough to think any of this up.
Mhm.
I'm not able to do anything that anybody else isn't able to do. When people come to me and say, I just can't do it, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't know how to do it, I say to them, celebrate. What a beautiful realization for you to realize. So if you can't do it, invite someone into your life who can do it.
Mhm.
Open yourself up to the presence of God in your life. We don't even want to call him God. We want to call him the universe and all that stuff. Open yourself up to God. Don't be ashamed of having God come into your life.
Right.
Let God come into your life and take control at that point.
Mhm.
Surrender the control you have on this world and let a greater existence, a more powerful being come into you
Mhm.
and guide you through the process of being
Mhm.
able to do the things you're being called to do. You do
Mhm.
not have to do this alone. Even if you have no friends, you're not alone. You have a
Mhm.
presence within you that is so powerful and so able to do everything. Just let it speak to you. Let it guide you. Be courageous. I just had a person on my show. I just loved her. Her name is Jessa Grace. And she has this ability. I felt her weeks before she even came onto the show. And she felt me weeks before we came on the show. We never talked to each other. We maybe texted a few times to each other. But we were both so excited to actually see each other and talk to each other because we had already felt each other so deeply. And the beautiful thing that came out of that was that she didn't feel like she was giving me anything, and I didn't feel like I was giving her anything. But we were both open to receiving when we were there, and who we were just transferred on its own. It wasn't that we did anything great. It's just the energy of this world is open to us all the time if we just open ourselves to it. If we're in a pandemic now and things on the outside world aren't working, go within. Go inside. Try and get to know yourself. Try and get to know this amazing world that lives within your being.
Mhm.
That world is so much more powerful than the world that you exist in on the outside. This world is all going to vanish. That world doesn't vanish. That world remains.
That's
Why
so
give all of our credence to a world that disappears and none of our credence to a world that remains? I
yeah.
don't understand it.
Now that is a good question. Now, so there's a lot of people listening who are like, how did you guys connect before and feel each other? Because
Yeah.
these type of experiences people long for. It's like you hear about people's stories and they want that, but they just don't know how to get it, so they watch and they think they can recreate it themselves, just mirroring that. We get the imposter syndrome where people are like, well, I'm going to do what they do and I can have what they have. But so explain to somebody who doesn't really understand that concept of connection, you
I
know.
wish I could. I wish I could. We sat marveling in it in the show that we had did together because really neither one of us have ever had it happen before. I mean, we know that we are energy beings, and I know that if I send you energy, you'll
Mhm.
feel it. I mean, I know that that will happen, and I know people have sent me energy from thousands of miles away, and we
Mhm.
felt it. What I've never experienced before, nor do I think she might have experienced it. I don't know if she did or not. Was the fact that without any sense of giving, energy still transmuted through us because we were open to receiving. We were both ready to receive something. And we don't even know how we found each other on Facebook. I mean, she was a friend of mine. I don't have any idea how she was a friend of mine, and I hadn't talked to her 5 years, 10 years. I've never talked to her, but she was a friend of mine. But
Mhm.
suddenly something came across my attention, and I thought, hold it, um, who is this person?
Mhm.
And I thought, I don't know you, but I feel you. Would you like to come on the show? And she said, that's amazing. I was just feeling you too. I would love to do that.
Mhm.
And so the only thing that I can say, which again is not in my experience, I don't know this. She didn't know it either. And when we spoke about it, the only thing we came to was the fact that there was no resistance to receive.
Mm. I love that.
And when there's no resistance to receive, the world itself gives to you. And it
Mhm.
gives to you through the people that are okay for you to get it from.
Mhm.
And she said, I'm not a very, there's times in my life where I haven't been trusting. I'm a young woman. I'm attractive. She used to be a model. I didn't want anything from her. I'm an old man, for God's sake. I'm married to a beautiful woman who I love.
Right.
Right. So it wasn't
Right.
like there was anything sexual in it.
Mhm.
But I spoke to her over an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago. I
Mhm.
still feel her.
Mhm.
And one
Mhm.
of the things she said on the show, which is something that I really feel too. We were just the same without knowing it. She said, there's so much energy that I have. There's so much available to me. If you're hearing me and this appeals to you, just come and take a part of me. You don't have to ask. Just come into my energy field and take a little piece. Take it with you. There's more than enough for everybody who's listening to have more than enough to have what they need. I would like to invite your guests to do the same thing right now with me. This is not a limited energy form. This is an infinite source of energy, because they're not taking a little piece of me. They're taking a little piece of the God that comes through me. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to offer. You don't need to ask my permission to do it. You don't need anything. Just come and take what you need to take. It's there for you.
So
See what
beautiful.
it does. See what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is awesome. And just, it's like what we were talking before we hit record, just the ability to see things differently in a time that others don't see it that way.
Yeah.
So, what would you say helps you to maintain that perspective? Because we can be taken here and there with the news or family members, people that are close to us and, we respect. But, just like you said, you scrolled and, or whatever the case was, and reaching out, there's that ability to see something and not be distracted with the things of the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
Um, One of the big teachings to me that the Mosaic taught me and being written through me was that nothing in this world is the way it seems. Nothing.
Hmm.
So my opinions are not what they seem. The people that I meet are not what they seem. Nothing is what it seems. And when you realize that nothing is what it seems, then you start to wonder, well, what could it be if it wasn't what I think it is? And new possibilities come in. And it allows you to be open to receive energy. I was going to say to you initially, I sit and I have a practice of meditation that I practice every day, as I told you. For the last 45 years, I practice emptying myself so I can be filled with something new. So the fact that you come and take a little piece of me, I love. The more empty you make me, the more I can be filled. And it isn't a matter of being run down and need to be recharged and going off into the hills. I'm having 10 or 12 conversations a day with people I don't even know. You would think that would be draining, and there is a part of me that gets tired. More so, I just don't want to talk to anybody anymore. I'm like, I'm happy to have a little space, not to have to, right?
Right.
But even then, if someone were to call me up and say I want to have a conversation, I would listen.
Hmm. Hmm. I love that. And that is just, it's something about it that's kind of therapeutic, I think, you know,
Yeah,
when you're able to hold that space for someone, that's you being able to show up so that they can get what they need. It's like you
yeah.
you recognize that you're a vehicle in that aspect. And I mean, just that knowing, what role you are to play, you know, which can.
In a little bit of a reframe, I don't think I have much of a role. Like, I don't think
Mhm.
I'm trying to change them. I don't think they need to talk to me to be better. I don't think anything has to happen. I don't
Mhm.
expect anything to happen. I don't want
Mhm.
anything to happen. I don't think that they need to be fixed or changed or that I need to help them.
Mhm.
But I see there's an incredible power that love has that, unknown to me, just loving somebody changes somebody. When my wife told me, I just love you for no reason, I don't need a reason to love you, I felt invincible,
Mm.
because I felt somebody actually loved me, not because they wanted something from me, but just
Mm.
because they loved me. They saw
Mhm.
through all the BS, and she just loved me.
Mhm.
There's no reason for her to love me. She's young and attractive and intelligent, and she doesn't need to love an old fart like me, right? but she just loved me.
Mhm.
And that love was invincible. I started to believe that I could do things that I didn't think I could do before. When we just love another person and accept another person, when we just listen to another person,
Mhm.
they suddenly feel seen. And when
Right.
people feel seen, watch out.
Mhm.
Because when people feel seen, miracles happen.
Mhm.
Think in your workplace how many people feel seen. Think how many people feel heard. Think in your schools, how many people, how many of the kids feel seen and heard?
Mhm.
How many of the teachers feel heard? How many of the professors feel heard? Think in your doctor's office, how many people feel heard?
Mhm.
We pass by people. We're so busy doing what we're doing that we don't really give a damn if they feel seen or heard.
Mhm.
We're working through to get to what we're working through.
Mhm.
Look at what's happening in America. We're having civil rights protests because people haven't felt heard.
Mhm.
We're having Me Too movements because people haven't felt seen.
Mhm.
We're having systems fall apart because nobody cares enough to actually see what the systems need to be fixed. We're just
Mhm.
doing it the way we've always been doing it.
Mhm.
We have prisons that are full of people who are acting out because they haven't felt heard or seen. We have people in hospitals dying and getting sick because no one's been able to listen to them and hear them. And finally, when they get sick, they feel seen and heard.
Mhm.
None of it has to happen.
Mhm. So true. Yeah. I mean, some great things for us to reflect on. And, it starts, like you said, it's the work that we do within that can help us in um, looking outward. So I guess
100%.
the question that I would ponder right now is, being able to know what questions to even begin a conversation with. You have people who, like you mentioned, civil rights or feeling like they are not being seen and heard. So for you to encounter somebody with that amount of pain or struggle or whatever, where we're not in a position of trying to change their beliefs or anything like that, where do we start with that whole mindset of listening? What questions do we ask to kind of get that ball rolling?
I start with one question, and from
Mm,
that one question, every other question emerges. And I ask people, how are you today?
mm,
And if oftentimes they'll say, great, fine, really good. And I'll say, okay, I understand that's what most people want from you when they ask that question. I'm actually interested in knowing how you really are. We have a pandemic going on. We have a civil rights movement. We have a Me Too movement. We have structures deteriorating. We have fires in California. We have floods in the South.
mm-hmm,
How are you really? Does any of that affect you? How are you doing? And you should see the difference in that fine great. To gosh, it just depends on the day. Sometimes I'm doing really lousy,
mm-hmm,
and I say, tell me about that.
mm-hmm,
All you have to do is care enough to just listen to what they'd actually say, given the space to say stuff. Most
mm-hmm.
of us don't give people the time and the space to do it. I had someone in my room this morning who said, I'm a great listener, and I've been talking to my husband, who's a doctor, about taking time to listen more because he has to move through his day. He doesn't have time to listen because he see what's going on, hear it very quickly, and prescribe and move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, how's that going? She said, well, it's been amazing because people say this is the only doctor's office I come into where I feel the doctor actually takes the time with me and listens to what I have to say.
Wow.
It's amazing the application of what listening will do. It's
Mm-hmm.
the most profitable thing we could do for our business.
Mm-hmm.
Is listen to our clients, listen to the people that buy our products.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most profitable thing we could do for our families. We
Mhm.
won't build a strong family until we start listening to the people in our family talking to us. You don't have to listen for hours. You just have to attune yourself to hear what's going on when you walk by them. What do you feel? I have two stepkids, and I don't. They have a dad, so I'm not trying to get in the way of their dad. I don't
Mhm.
want them to feel confused,
Mhm.
but I want them to know I'm always there and I'm always available if they need to say something. And some
Mhm.
of the things they say, I'll tease them and I won't be there for them, and I spend long periods of time alone. But I'll walk past them. I'll say, "Are you okay? Something doesn't feel right." And they'll say, "Well, God, I can't believe you felt that. This is what's going on. Can we sit for a minute?" I said, "Of course we can. I'm always here for you."
Mhm.
It doesn't take 24/7 every day,
Right.
but it takes the love of 24/7 to make the few moments that you give have impact.
That's good. So good. I mean, I'm telling you, we have got to take time. I think it's just that slowing down. We have been given the gift, as you said earlier, of this pandemic. Now, some consider it being a curse, and others can look at it as a gift. And the be able to have the time to reconnect with family, to really have everything stand still and reevaluate your priorities. I mean, I can go on and on with the positive things, family
Yeah.
dinners and, staying home and, really communicating with your loved ones. I mean, I just can keep on seeing the positives, right? So,
100%. What I want to add to that is for people who spend very little time getting to know themselves,
mm-hmm,
this is a fabulous time to get to know yourself.
mm-hmm,
Go inside. If you can't go outside, go inside.
mm-hmm,
We can't go outside much.
mm-hmm.
Spend time, even if the TV's on, use the TV to just occupy the space so that you don't have to say anything to anybody, and just take that time to go inside and do work on yourself. Listen to yourself. See what yourself's trying to say to yourself. Sometimes I'll sit with the family and we'll be watching something. I don't even have any idea what show's on
Right.
because it's not important. It's just important for me to be there with them, but I'm completely engaged internally,
Right.
allowing the TV to do the work of occupying everybody else's presence in their mind so that I can do my internal work
Yeah.
and that I can send love to them without them having to feel like, what's he doing?
Right. I love that. That is so good. So, I guess the last question would be walking us through that. That's a great scenario that you've painted for us with being there present with the family, but not really engaged necessarily on what's on TV, but still emitting that love. So for somebody who is not doing that inner work, what is it that we're actively doing to continue to emit that love while we're in the presence of other people?
I'm stumped a little bit because I can only talk from my own experience, and I don't know what someone who doesn't do the inner work can do because I've
Mm,
done the inner work. I wish I was smart enough to be able to take myself out and say, okay, this is what you can do. But that sounds like I would be saying something that is not based on my experience. What I've
I
said to
feel
other
you.
people
Okay, which is totally fine. We're
is all
going
based on my experience.
absolutely.
What I would say to someone who doesn't know themselves is take the time to get to know yourself, whether that's through prayer, whether that's through meditation, whether that's through taking a walk, whether that's through just sitting alone and being quiet, whether it's through looking at a candle, whether it's through listening to music, whether it's through making love to your partner, whether it's whatever it is that you feel comfortable doing.
Mhm.
Watch yourself doing what you're doing. As you're watching TV, watch the person who's watching TV watch TV. As you're having a conversation with somebody, watch the person who's having a conversation with the person you're having a conversation with. What do you see in the person that's having the conversation? That's yourself talking to another person. Can you be objective and see yourself and observe yourself at the same time you're participating in your life? If you can't, Watch yourself watching the TV. Who is that person? Like, what does the TV have to give you that you can't, that wouldn't be so much more valuable if you just spent that time watching the person who's watching the TV? Get to know yourselves.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, I think that that's great because a lot of people hear about self care, doing the inner work, and that is really key to know exactly what that inner work is and knowing the ability that we have to choose even within the things that we are doing ourselves. You know, we're able to observe in a manner which gives us that space to recognize that it's a choice what we're doing. We're
The
not
simplest
like
thing,
robots, right? We are
yeah, yeah.
actively participating in whatever relationships we're in, decisions we're making. We're not walking around here like some robots, even though we've distracted sometimes with
Yeah.
our decisions and then end up with the outcomes.
The simplest thing I could say to someone who wants to get to know themselves a little more is try and be in the present moment. How do you be in the present moment? You watch your breath. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that can take you, there's nothing past or future about your breath. You inhale, you
Mm-hmm.
exhale. And if you watch the process of yourself breathing, you will be stuck in this moment. Because in this moment, you're either inhaling or exhaling. That's all
Mm-hmm.
that's happening in this moment. And allow the practice of watching your inhalation and your exhalation to take you to the next practice that it wants to give you. You don't have to know where it's going to take you. You just have to allow it to follow, allow yourself to follow where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But start by just watching the inhalation. You can't, if you watch your inhalation and you actually stay present with it, everything else will slip away. When you find yourself thinking thoughts, that's fine. Allow yourself to think thoughts and to
Mm-hmm.
come back to your breath. Come back to watching
Mm-hmm.
the inhalation and the exhalation.
Mm-hmm.
You will remain in this moment, and in this moment, you will feel something.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the ability to feel sometimes. Let's feel again. Feel the air going into your nostrils. When was the last time you felt what the air going into your nostrils felt like? Is it
Mm-hmm.
warm or is it cold? Does it
Mm-hmm.
tickle? Is it gentle? Is it hard? What does it feel like? Does it have a scent to it or does it not have a scent to it?
Mm-hmm.
What does the air going out of your nostrils feel like?
Mm-hmm.
Is it warm or is it cold? Is
Mm-hmm.
it more forceful than the inhalation or less forceful? What There's so much to watch and observe in just the simple practice of an
Mm-hmm.
inhalation and exhalation. But we put that on automatic pilot because it's too hard for us to think about our breath because of all the other things we're thinking about. Well,
Mm-hmm.
the breath is what gives us life. The way we breathe is what gives us the quality of the life we have.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a short inhalation and a short exhalation, we're not taking much in from the world.
Mm-hmm.
We're not giving much back to the world. If we have a short inhalation and a long exhalation, we're not taking anything in, but we're trying to give to the world everything. So we're giving and giving and giving, but we're not receiving anything. How long
Mm-hmm.
is that going to go on for?
Mm-hmm.
If we have a long inhalation and a short exhalation, we're taking from the world, but we're not giving much back. Why?
Mm-hmm.
How long does that go on? How long until you just become too full of yourself and there's no more room to take anything else in?
Mm-hmm.
The easiest thing in the whole world is to take a deep inhalation and a deep exhalation. Invite the world to come into you, every fiber of it into your being. And
Mm-hmm.
then when it's in your being, give all of it back into the world by letting it go. That simple practice right there will get
Mm-hmm.
you in touch with yourself in a way you may never have known before. Let
So
that
true.
take you to the next practice.
So true. That's good. That is awesome. Now, so how does the audience get a hold of these conversations? Are these
Uh,
someplace that they can observe those?
Yeah, I'll send it to you. They're either on my YouTube channel, which I'll send you the link to, or
Okay.
they can go to the mosaiconline.com slash forward slash conversations, and all of them are on my website there that they can see
Awesome.
that. If they want to sign up for my YouTube channel, I would love that. That would be my honor. I
Mm-hmm.
would love to have people get notified when they come out. I'm having so many now. I was turning them around so quickly that now I can't turn them around that quickly. So I have so many in the queue that I have to get out. I just don't even know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
You're
I'm
speaking my
just going to.
language. That's the same thing that happened to me, so I totally get it. Okay.
Yeah,
I guess you're thinking, you never know what God has for you, especially
mm-hmm.
when you're willing. And it's an evolution, I believe.
Yeah, it is.
You
Yeah,
start off with one mindset, and as you create, as your word says, mosaics, right? Each experience is a part of that mosaic, and it just ends up being something you hadn't even imagined, but still beauty in the process.
absolutely. And I want to invite those of you who are listening. If you have a business, if you have a family, if you
Mhm.
have something where you feel people aren't listened to, some of the work that has started to come to me is people
Mhm.
are bringing me in either through Zoom when now it's Zoom but when the pandemic ends, I'll come out to where you are. I'll come and sit with your business, and I'll encourage an environment where you can actually learn to listen to each other and be with each other, and not learn how to do it, but practice doing it and be there and listen
Mm.
to each other. So if your family's going through a hard time, if your if your business is going through a hard time, if you feel like you haven't listened to your secretary or the guy who ships your products, or your creative team, or your sales team, or your vice president, or your the guy that drives you to work,
Mm.
your Uber guy,
Mhm.
or the person that makes your coffee. Let's have a conversation. We can figure out how to work together to do that.
That's awesome. Well, I encourage everybody to take you up on that offer because, you
Thank
have
you.
just really enlightened us today. So that is just even wonderful it's about being all of you in everything that you do.
Yeah.
I just know through my periods and my history with depression, I was compartmentalized in my life. I was this way in this role and this way in another role. But when you can be all of you in all things, it's just so much more clarity, joy, consistency, discipline. I mean, all those things just fall right in alignment when that happens.
I love that. For me, the terminology is so easy. When you
Mhm.
bring all the pieces of yourself together and create the mosaic of what you are, it's the totality of your experience of your life, and it's a beautiful totality to look at. Show yourself to the world, every single piece of you.
Awesome. Well said. So, any final words? I mean, that was a good one right there, but anything additional that you want to leave with the audience?
Yeah, let me see if I can do this quickly, because um, one of the people that I met, I told you I've sat with the richest people in the world and the poorest. One of the
Mm-hmm.
people that I met that had the most impact on me was Corey. Corey was a homeless man who lives in San Diego. He lives on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the opportunity to sit with him one day. He didn't want me to sit with him. I came up and he went, "No, no, no, this is my corner. You can't have it. I'm sitting here. This is my corner." And I said, "I'm sorry. I don't want anything from you. I just want to sit next to you." And he said, "No, no, no, it's my corner. You can't have it." I said, I need to make the money from what I'm going to do here. And if you're here, I'm not going to make the money." I said, "How much money will you make in the next half an hour?" And he said, $5. So I took $50 out of my wallet and I put it in a hat. And I said, "Here's $50. $5 with me being here. You keep that too, okay? I just want an opportunity to sit with you and talk to you and listen to you." It took him about 45 minutes for him to open up to me. And what he said to me is, being homeless is the hardest thing in the whole world to do. He hates himself for being homeless. He's embarrassed and ashamed. But on top of his own self disgust, people walk by and treat him as a thing. They don't treat him as a person. They kick him, they beat him, they spit on him. Somebody urinated on him. Someone threw a bag
Mm-hmm.
of human defecation on him. They steal his money, and they say names and call him names. And finally, one day, all of it happened at the same day. And he said, I've had enough of this. I hate my life. I'm not doing anything for anybody. People hate me. I'm going to go around the corner tonight. The street behind this street is a dark street. Nobody goes on. And I'm going to take my life tonight.
Mm.
2 minutes after he had that thought, a man came up and put his hand on his shoulder. He said, how are you doing, brother? And Corey said to the man, it's not a good day, sir. Please go on. I appreciate you coming, but this isn't a good day. Just carry on with your day. And the man said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And he sat down next to him, and he said, will you let me hold you? And Corey said, I normally don't, but I'll let you do that. Corey looked at me and he said, it took about 10 minutes, Danny. Just 10 minutes in the presence of this person for me to realize I couldn't take my life that night. Here was somebody who was important, coming up to someone who wasn't important like myself, and caring enough about me to spend 10 minutes with me and just listen to my problems. And that night I didn't take my life, and that was many years ago, and I'm still alive now. And he said, I wish I would have seen that man. I wish I would have been able to tell him that those 10 minutes he spent with me saved my life. Well, when Corey told me that story, it impacted me so much that I've told that story on just about every podcast that I've been on every talk that I've given, in every conference that I've gone to, in every group meeting that I've gone, in every boardroom that I've spoken to, I've told Corey's story. Mm-hmm. And I wish that he could know that how many people have heard his story, because the challenge that comes with his story at the end was this. I said to him, Corey, when you going through what you went through, you see all these people passing you by on the street. What would you say to them if you could say something? He said, you have no idea the impact you have on another person's life. If each of you would take 10 minutes out of the course of your lifetime and go up to someone you don't know and just ask them how they're doing, what might happen as a result of that? For me, it saved my life when somebody did that to me. So I would like to encourage everybody who's listening to go with Corey's challenge. I've now given this challenge to millions of people. Corey has no idea, because I've never been able to see him again and tell him how impactful his one story is. But just like the man saved his life, Corey gave my life purpose and gave my life meaning by giving me something to invite people to do. It's why I started the conversations with strangers. It's why I'll continue to do it till my days no longer permit me to. Go out and find somebody you don't know. Ask them how they're doing. And you don't need to fix them, change them, help them, change them, or do anything, convert them, do anything. Just love on them and let them tell you how they're doing. Who knows what impact that will have on the person you're talking to?
Simply beautiful. Simply beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And definitely, I mean, this has just given me some great listening candy that I can chew on for a couple of days at least. This has just really been a blessing. So, one of the things that's really impactful for me is this on video. Normally, I'm just feverishly taking notes. So, I'm excited that I could go back and stop and pause and write stuff down. So, thank you so much for your insight, and best of luck with all that you're doing with your conversations. And I know they are definitely impacting the lives of others. And I encourage you to keep doing everything you're doing.
Michelle, thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you for having me here on the show. Thank you for being you and being my friend. I appreciate it. It means more to me than you can know.
Well, you are so welcome. And I look forward to us collaborating again. Okay. I got a lot of homework until we have our next meeting, though.
Okay. Big love to you.
Love to you too. Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.